But what is it? Well, in ancient times, people understood there was something called magnetism. They didn't know what to call it. They didn't know how it worked. But there were rocks, there were stones called lodestones. These are little pieces of magnetic rock. And they could see that if you put them close enough to each other, they might be attracted to each other without being touched. They would just move towards each other. But if you turned the rocks around, they would repel each other. And that was just very strange. They thought there was a spiritual force in them, something supernatural, because they could not see a force that was responsible for this. And this was a thing that was a source of much mysticism and superstition for a very long time, culminating in the 18th century with a guy called Franz Mesmer. Franz Mesmer was a Frenchman, he was operating in France. He was Austrian and French. And what Mesmer was doing is he realized that electricity and magnetism had something to do with people's health, physical health and mental health. He believed in something called animal magnetism, which is a term we still use today sometimes. And he felt that every organic being, every animal, every person had a magnetic charge. And if that magnetic charge was out of balance, the person got sick. That was his concept. Another person who developed some of the ideas of Mesmer, because he actually watched Mesmer in action, was Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin, the very famous American statesman, who was also a kind of scientist and a philosopher. He witnessed what Mesmer was doing, and he was fascinated by electricity, as was Mesmer. And Benjamin Franklin created the world's first batteries, in that he gave the term battery to something that would store electrical power. For Franklin, the word battery came from the military use of battery, which is a lot of cannons pointing in one direction, a battery of cannons. To Franklin, a collection of glass jars that held electrical charges in them looked like a battery, and that's how we called the system a battery. We get our word today, battery, for an electrical battery from Benjamin Franklin. Then after Franklin, we have someone called Nikola Tesla, and we will get into that in a minute. And then finally, the birth of what we now know today as diathermy, which is a method of transmitting heat into the body. That was discovered in the late 19th century in France, using the discoveries of Nikola Tesla. And then finally, a Frenchman called D'Arsonval, who was the first person to realize that there was actually a therapeutic electrical current that could be applied to the body. When we think of electric current applied to the body, they always have negative connotations, like electroconvulsive therapy, or we're electrocuting somebody. But D'Arsonval realized that at the right pitch, at the right range of megahertz, that electrical charge could be actually very therapeutic, and it was not harmful.